You guys, it's the final part of the daily. It's going to be a faster one because the game's almost done! And I talk too much. Ugh. Welcome to the Day 9 Daily where we learn to be a better gamer watching that PvP. Which, just love that PvP. Hopping right in. Hey, my canker sores are hurting less. I can smack my lips. So both of them are kind of in this funky spot where we actually have mana with a lot of Colossi in production. He's actually has Colossi 4 and 5 on the way. Excuse me, 3 and 4 on the way. Whereas our sad soul LiquidHerO has only one more Colossus on the way. But what's kind of an interesting concept that we're seeing LiquidHerO do, that I think is just one of the most brilliant things in mid and late game PvP, that I actually think he's one of the first people I've seen do. That when I was first watching this replay, I was like, wait, what? And then you actually stop and think about it, and you go, oh, well, LiquidHerO, you're so smart. He sees that this Blink Stalker number is just not getting bigger. And also, what has LiquidHerO seen? Well, he kind of sees the double robo production. Alright, cool. In other words, if he runs out into the middle of the map, he might run into some Colossus, but that's fine. Colossus aren't ridiculously fast units. He can just run away. The only scary fast unit are Stalkers, which this army totally crushes. In other words, LiquidHerO is completely safe splitting up his units like this. Have you ever had this issue dealing with Blink Stalkers in the mid-game as Protoss? No big deal. If you actually get that range upgrade and have some Immortals and some Zealots there, you can easily split your forces up and begin to zone the Blink Stalkers. It's actually very similar to at this early stage in the game when we saw mouzMaNa zoning the Phoenixes, right? He had these Stalker troops. I'll actually cut ahead to 8 minutes. He had these Stalker troops splitting up around the map trying to annihilate these Phoenixes. Look at that nice Stalker split. Because the Phoenixes, there's no way that they can possibly engage those Blink Stalkers. So look, we have some Stalkers down here, some Stalkers down here, to take out the weaker, more mobile Phoenix. This tends to make sense to people splitting up to kill Phoenixes because, you know, people view Phoenixes as weak. But there's this erroneous view that Blink Stalkers are strong and scary. Not when you have a stronger, scarier force. So I love that LiquidHerO is doing this here, split up. I'm torn on going Forge Robo versus Robo Forge, but if Hero does it, it's, you know, probably better. I think in all probability-ness. But kind of continuing on what we were talking about in part number dos, getting gateways 4 and 5 are pretty critical for the mid-game. Unless your opponent has a super delayed expansion in the way you do. So I actually don't mind that LiquidHerO is still not building gateways 4 and 5 because, again, both he and his opponent are going to be pretty low on the funds, going to be low on the gateway unit count. So going for the Colossus makes oodles and oodles of sense. So here's the awkward position we find ourselves in. What the hell do we do from both sides? We have some Colossus as mana, we have some Colossus as hero. We're making our Colossus 2 at a time. How the hell do we break the other player? Well, Mana is going to do the expected thing and just try to poke around at the opponent, but this is why I think this split uppage is so smart. It allows us to be able to secure ourselves a third base. And that very much so should be the goal on a pretty small map like this. Just getting a third base up with a nice defensive position is, well, hell, it's easy on Cloud Kingdom. It's like the easiest map in the world to do this on. So you just snatch it right up. But also getting Archons along with the Colossus is kind of like the last transition in the unit mix. And it's an interesting choice. What is the best way to go for the Archons in this sort of late spot? If we both took fast expansions, and we're both kind of going for fast thirds, we have a ton of resources. You can go double Robo Colossus with 9 gateways. You can get the speed upgrade for the Zealots, you can get Templar, or High Templar to build the Archons, and you can start being really aggressive. It's a little bit difficult to constantly produce out of 2 robos and 9 gateways, but when you do the attack, you can do a fast replenishment round with the 9, and then do another replenishment round and keep drilling away. That's in those high econ, all game long kind of situations. But we're not there yet. So what I like is, hell, we're battling to try to have, hell, robo superiority. Going for a Dark Shrine, I like a lot. It's a little bit more efficient on the gas. And there's fireworks from outside. It's a little bit more efficient on the gas, which is nice because we're downing a ton on robo. And we have not that many gateways. So we can build the DT, and if he has fewer than 2 observers, he's in a lot of trouble. Because right now, Mana does have 2. Here's one. The other one's up here. If we DT counterattack, he might have to waste a Colossus round, morphing in another observer. Likewise, Mana is in somewhat of a tough position because how does he break LiquidHerO? This is another alternative solution where you get the Warp Prism and then you move your whole damn army out. He's going to have to like clump his army together to deal with your army together. And in the meantime, the Warp Prism can deal good damage. I don't think that the damage count is particularly fantastic with the Warp Prism, but certainly you'll be able to pick off some probes. The Warp Prism play is really strong if it's a 3-base versus 3-base thing. It's a really, really, really strong play. And alright, get ready for the anti-climax, you guys. The anti-climax. Doing a push like this is totally unnecessary. You don't actually really need to do this kind of huge push. Let me talk about when and why. Like right now. Here we go. Here we go. Mana's stacking himself up. He's getting ready to do the push. Stalkers in the front, Zealots in the back for maximum inefficiency. Hero has, oh, let's count it, 7 Colossi to 5. But in reality, it's 4. Alright, let's go to the Units Lost tab. They're dead even. Uh-oh. Oh no! This is why we don't get in these engagements with inferior number of Colossi. We try to do some cute stuff up on the high ground. Starting to see Mana. He's regrouping. There's the Warp Prism up on high. Trying to get into some good angles. Seems totally clear. Hero's just kind of hanging out with a much, much better concave. Again, this type of push isn't that necessary. If you're leading with your Colossus, it's okay, but you still have to be super careful. The instant you decide to go for it, look at the Units Lost tab. Oh my god. Oh, it's getting, the red bar is getting so huge. Yeah. Yep. Yerp, yerp, yerp. Isn't PvP easy? You wait for your opponent to walk in and make a mistake. Herp, derp, derp. So let me tell you what is a little bit more reasonable at this point in the game. Now, the thing is that, let me note for a minute, when would you want to do this attack? When would busting down the front door be good when you're both starting to be able to go double Colossus? I would say there's just 2 broad circumstances. One, when you clearly have more Colossi. Emphasis on the word clearly. If you have like 8 and he has 7, the 7 will win with a much better concave. Like, they'll actually crush with a much better concave. But if you have 6 and he has 3, just kill him. Just kill him. Fucking kill him, man. So that's one circumstance, when you have clearly more Colossi. The second one is when you have some Colossi, but way more gateway units. And then you want to attack when you're both kind of low on Colossi. So let's say, for instance, we opened up with some sort of Zealot Archon play. Very common when you do a DT opening. So I might have something like 25 Zealots and an Archon. And then I start Colossus production. And I manage to just get 3 out. It's really good to attack right now, because if I wait until I have like 7 or 8 Colossi, then he will also have 7 or 8 Colossi. My 25 Zealots almost don't exist anymore. They'll show up to the battle and just get eaten alive. So we see Huck do this quite a bit, where he'll get 2-3 Colossi. His opponent will have 3-4 Colossi, but Huck will have 25 Speed Zealots. And because he's pushing early, he's able to make use of them. So again, if you have clearly more Colossi, or if you have way more gateway units, try to attack when the Colossus numbers are low. That's about it. Here, doing this kind of poke makes total sense in the context of taking a third base. This is great. Pulling back right now is also totally great. And, you know, getting a Templar Archive and some more gateways and starting to add in Archons. As you get all the robos and all the upgrades done, like the extended thermal lance, your gas count will start to climb up. So start throwing in some Archons into that mixture. And then Hero's in quite a rough spot and is forced to push. But the instant you get into somewhat of a bad engagement, it's going to be a tragedy. And most importantly of all, while you're doing this with mana, swinging up here and doing, like, you know, a Zealot drop, killing some stuff off, then running away is great. Because your final composition, you really do want to have Colossus Archon. And that, I think, I'm just going to stop there. That was it. It's my daily. You know, I think I'm going to do 2 more Protoss dailies this week. I like the sound of that. I like it. Let's go to the Markio question grabber. Okay, so Shiny Akusa, or Shiny AK USA, says, Day 9, I never seem to see more than 2 bases taken in PvP. Is it beneficial to even bother taking a third in a PvP game? I would say that this pops out of players really favoring this hyper-aggression sort of opening, like what Mana's doing. It's actually becoming less and less common to see players stuck on 1 or 2 bases. They're getting really, really good at taking thirds and fourths. But the thing to emphasize is that I would say that there's 3 key times when it's early to lose. The 4 gate, then losing to that follow-up, either Blink or Immortal all-in on 1 base, and then, of course, losing to Mass Colossus. And the important thing to note is just you don't have to engage the Colossus until it's really, really good for you. And it's really, really important to actually take a third when you start to have a Colossus lead. Because fewer Colossus with a big concave crushes lots of Colossi clustered together. I still remember there was this great game from White Raw that I was watching. I was actually casting it, where the opponent had 5 Colossi, I think, and a lot of gateway units. And White Raw had like 9 Colossi and almost no gateway units. And White Raw engaged and won and had like 7 Colossi left over. This is what happens when you wait too long and have too many gateway units. And likewise, I've seen games where a player has 8 Colossi and a good amount of gateway units against 5 Colossi and a good amount of gateway units. And the 5 crushes just because they're clustered together. So it's those fragile engagements that don't really have to happen. That's the big thing I would emphasize. So the instant you start getting some Colossi, taking a third. Really great, taking a third. Like, seriously, get 3-4 Colossi, take a third. Especially on ESV Cloud Kingdom. I would say the big missing thing to credit is the Zealot. If you have a superior Zealot count, you can get a lot more shots in with your Colossus and stay alive a lot more. You don't want to go nuts, but I mean players who have like 16 Zealots versus the players who have 4. I mean, sometimes it's too easy to just focus on the Colossus count, if you know what I mean. And certainly when you want to start getting the Zealot Archon, you kind of need the turd base up. I'm actually just going to take 2. I was casting the Team Liquid Star League today with Husky StarCraft, which was a lot of fun. But I'm realizing my energy level is starting to just like... So let's take 2 more. Let us take 2 more. Alright, I'm going to take this question. Praken asks this, as well as... who else asked this? Yeah, SC Nikon, talking about going back to Phoenix production. You know, well, I have Phoenixes up. Won't it be more beneficial to go for Phoenix late game because they're good against the Colossi? In fact, it's not as good as you'd think, because it's like 2 Phoenix versus a Colossus. That's actually the exact same cost ratio. So would you rather have 6 Phoenixes or 3 Colossi? And if your opponent has any number of blink at all, it becomes pretty clear that the Colossi are going to be a little bit better in those big ground engagements. That said, Phoenixing players have the following advantage. What if our opponent expands a little earlier and starts the double robo production a little earlier? Well, we as the Phoenixing player, we can actually get a few extra hits in with our Phoenix in those big battles, and it'll help tip it into our favor. And it's more like you feel how good the Phoenixes are in the battle as opposed to or you feel how good it is to have those early game Phoenixes in a mid game battle. It's a lot less of, oh hey, it's a late game, let me try to start throwing in some Phoenixes. Because you'll be in one of 2 situations. One, you both couldn't get an expansion up very early. So if you're in that situation, you have almost no money. You don't want to waste it getting some Phoenixes and killing off 4 or 5 probes. He's going to have a lot more Colossi. Or you both got your expansions up, and you do have money to get the Phoenixes up. But then he'll also have a ton of money to be able to get the Blink Stalkers up. The late game, the mid and late game Blink Stalkers, or excuse me, the mid and late game Phoenixes just don't have that much utility. I mean, Feedback, High Templar are really annoying. Blink Stalkers really, really annoying. Even the Colossus, you can't kill them that fast. They're generally good in the semi-early game. Taking one more. Last question from Spiffcraft. Day 9, I tend to do 1 base all-ins versus Protoss and I'm successful, but would it be worth doing more macro games and get ready for Master or Diamond? Yes! I actually did an experiment of this exact thing, where I only 4-gated. I only did an optimum 4-gate against all the races, and just started to track down what the experience was like. Amazingly, you can 4-gate Zergs and they'll still lose to it, man. Those Zergs get so greedy. They're like, oh, I'm taking a 3rd base. What do you mean you're 4-gating? Oh, what the? I don't have speed Zerglings yet. And I'm like, Stalker, 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 Zealot. So I'm going to ignore that. They're just playing incorrectly. It's terrible against Terran, because Terrans will just wall in and be like, oh, look, free units. But the big thing is against Protosses. If you only 4-gate, what you'll feel is you'll win, and then you'll hit a point where you will lose every single game. And it's actually quite frustrating, especially if you have a really pimpin' 4-gate, right? If you're really nailing that on the head. What I'd strongly suggest is that you start going for long-term macro games, going for Blink, going for Phoenix, and you'll have the opposite feeling, where you'll lose all the time. You'll lose so much, and you'll be enraging. You'll be like, I want to cheese and go 4-gate. But as long as you don't, you'll hit a point where suddenly you'll just stop losing early, and then PvP becomes awesome. Yes. I'll actually speak straight from personal experience. There was probably last year, midway through the year, where I didn't really play for 2 months-ish, because I was just flying all the time. And then when I came back, I said, I'm going to do this really long-term oriented PvP. And I literally had that exact experience. Lost almost all the time. Then it was like 10 games that were wobbly, but I won. And then it was just like no losses in the early game. And I was like, oh yeah, it feels great. And this is one of the reasons why I love PvP so much, is once you figure out how to not die early on, you're just like, oh, this matchup is awesome. I'm done. Fun Day Monday for next week. Submit to me a game of you playing Zerg, getting an Infestor Neural, parasiting his worker, and then killing him with his own race. Send that to Monday at day9.tv. I'm hungry. I have to eat. I'm hungry. Here I go. I love you so much.